was all I needed to hear to have the little bit of hope to keep going. I had to try whatever I could, and this felt like it was worth it.
In today's video, we're going to talk about a real case study to help you decide between egg donation and surrogacy. I understand this might not be your first choice, and we all want to get pregnant naturally with our own eggs. But in some cases, that's just not possible. So in today's story, I want to share hope with you and tell you how wonderful this process can be if you, like one of the members of my Hope program, decide to go forward with egg donation and surrogacy. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sklar, also known as the fertility expert, and I'm here to help you understand your fertility and take the next steps towards starting your family. Over the last 21 years, I've been a natural fertility expert, and I've helped so many women just like you, and I'm excited to share what I've learned with them, with all of you. So I like to comment throughout while we're hearing the testimonials and stories from Hope members. And I'm going to do that here. Again, this is about egg donation and surrogacy. I want you to be open-minded. I want you to hear her story. Obviously, that's not the place she started when she wanted to get pregnant, but that's the place she ended, and it was a beautiful, happy ending. And I want you to hear her story, and I'm going to interject throughout to add my thoughts on the process. Okay, let's get started hearing what Lisa has to say.
So my husband and I got married about 5 years ago and started trying for kids pretty quickly after we got married. I was 35 at the time, so we knew we were kind of right at that tricky age. And after nothing was happening, I went to a reproductive endocrinologist, and they do the whole battery of tests initially, and they couldn't find anything. And I had no symptoms. I felt healthy. I ate pretty healthy. I exercised, everything that they recommend that you do, I would say that I was doing. So after doing some of the tests, we ended up opting for IVF. I did 2 egg retrievals, and just so that I would have a couple of embryos, hopefully to do a sibling journey at some point. And then we went in for the first embryo transfer. It wasn't successful. We started the second embryo transfer. That one did get a positive pregnancy test, and we were so excited. And it ended up miscarrying pretty early. And it was actually right as we were moving states as well. So I had to sort of start the process over with a new doctor in our new state. And again, we went through all of the tests. That time she found a small polyp in my uterus. So then I had a small surgery to clear that out. And so I was almost optimistic because they had found something. So we had the procedure. I thought, okay, that was it. Let's try this again. This one's going to be positive. So we did another embryo transfer. That one was a chemical pregnancy. And so by this time, I'm somebody who's a little bit obsessed with numbers, and I knew 3 embryo transfers with genetically, tested embryos, I should have gotten pregnant. There was, nothing that was really outstanding that was telling me that I didn't have a good chance. And I think we tried maybe 1 more embryo transfer that wasn't successful. And then I just sort of said, okay, I've got to do something different. I liked my doctor, but everything was sort of the norm, right? Here's what we do. Here's the protocol. Here's what we, see in the clinical tests. I was a weird case. I knew that, and I needed someone to think about me a little bit differently and to try different things.
We all figure out when we need to look for more help. For Lisa, it took multiple failed transfers, multiple clinics to get to that place. And that happens at different journey at different times for each one of us in our journey. And so she, was calm. She understood. She was thinking about things rationally and logically. And that's when she realized, hey, I should have been pregnant and had a healthy pregnancy with one of these transfers, and that didn't happen. So what do I need to do now? And that's where she started to think a little bit differently about her fertility, to start to open up her mind to different options that might be available.
I'm also somebody that, if you need to solve a problem, I try to read everything, listen to everything. So I had heard Marc on a podcast and just really liked his energy, and he seemed just so educated and kind, and all of these different things wrapped up into one. So I ended up looking up the program, reading a little bit more about it, doing a consult, and I knew that it was a little bit more of an investment in what's already, an expensive and long process, but just the idea that maybe I could find someone who would understand me was tempting. And I knew I had to try whatever I could, and this felt like it was worth it. And it was, 10 times over. And there were a lot of things about the program that was more than just, a few words of help from Marc or a plan from Marc. I think just having the community, so not necessarily that I was talking with the community every day, but you see everybody's stories and their questions, and it just makes you feel not so alone. And I don't even know that I knew that I felt so alone, but you see your friends and they're getting pregnant so easily and you're so happy for them, but you feel like, man, like, why is it such a journey for me? And in this group, these are your people. Everybody has a different path. It's not like everyone's going through the same thing, but it's people that understand what that struggle is.
One of the most important things that I wanted to create when I created my Hope Fertility Coaching Program was support and community support, because I heard all over and over again so many women saying how alone they felt, how abandoned. They didn't have anyone to lean on and talk to. Aside from talking to me and my team to get our support, getting the support from other women and couples who are going through fertility issues has been invaluable to everybody else. It's one of the more important things that I hear from everybody who's joined, just like Lisa, say how valuable that is. Even if you're not always commenting or a part of it, but to be able to know that there are other people going through the same struggles, to read their questions, read the answers, to understand, oh, that might pertain to me, and to get that sort of support, especially not just when things are awesome, but when things are hard, to have people there to lift you up. That is the value of community, and that is something that we have created in the community part of the Hope Fertility Coaching Program.
That was really, really helpful. And then, Marc was incredible. I think there's a few specific things. So one, in that he sort of specializes in women who have these extra challenges. So he has seen a lot of different things that I don't think my doctor had seen. And so he was giving me suggestions that I hadn't heard before. And I think he does it in such an empathetic and patient way, but also so knowledgeable. And you can push back and ask questions, and he welcomes that and he'll explain it to you. And then it's a pretty tough thing to have to go, not against your doctor, but I remember there was one big turning point for me, which Marc had said, you have these repeated miscarriages with the genetically tested embryos. You should do this miscarriage panel, these different tests that we recommend. And so I went to my doctor and I said, I'd like to do these tests. And she said, these aren't, clinically accepted. They're not recommended by the board of whatever it was. She was not on board. And so then I went back to Marc and I said, I'm getting a lot of resistance. And we almost workshopped how to talk to my doctor. And I'm not necessarily a shrinking violet, but I'm out of my element. I'm not the expert here. And, you want to be able to trust your doctor. And that was really, really helpful. And so I did push.
So this is huge. I want all of you to be advocates for yourself, but sometimes we don't know enough on how to advocate for ourselves or when it's appropriate to advocate for ourselves. In Lisa's case, I remember these exact conversations that we had. We went back and forth about this, about what's the right way to phrase this to be able to get her the testing that she needed and to have it work with her IVF doctor so that way she could get the proper care that she needed. This is so, so valuable. I see this so often that doctors just push back and be like, you don't need it. It doesn't matter. It's not going to change things. We have to be able to advocate for ourselves. We have to be able to properly do that to get what we need. We all deserve to get the proper testing and evaluation so we know how to move forward, especially in situations like this where you've spent tens of thousands of dollars, had multiple unsuccessful cycles, and they still just want to do the same thing, right? So let's keep hearing.
She did it and was fine with it. She did it willingly. And that specific test actually came back and showed that I had tested really high for a protein that is indicative of endometriosis. Mm-hmm. And I had had zero symptoms of endometriosis.
Silent endometriosis.
And so my doctor was really surprised. And she said, here are the different options. So I took those options back to Marc and I said, here are my options. What should we do? So I ended up doing a laparoscopy. So it's a surgery where they actually go in and you look at to see if you can see endometriosis. So I remember waking up from the surgery and you're all groggy, and my doctor, you could tell she was surprised. And she said, you have stage 3 endometriosis. I cleaned out as much as I could. And it was, in some ways, it was like a relief to finally have an answer. But it was also, disappointing to have something that, makes fertility challenging.
So this is huge. I cannot begin to tell you all how often this same scenario happens where I want to do some additional testing. They don't want to do it. The testing that we wanted for her, by the way, wasn't something that I can order. It was a biopsy. She needed to have her doctor do it. And that's where the pushback was. And I can't tell you how often when we actually do it that we find things like this where they're like, oh, I'm surprised. I would never have done this. Exactly. That's why we needed to do it. And in her case, the endometriosis was silent. And when they went in to address it, it was profound. It was extreme. And she could only do so much. And that was the situation she was in. If we didn't do this testing, she would never have known, and she would have kept spinning her wheels.
After we cleaned out the endometriosis, I did another embryo transfer. That one was my most successful in terms of carrying the pregnancy the longest, but ended in a miscarriage as well. At the same time, I'm going through the HOPE program, so I'm doing the supplements and the diet and everything that they recommend. And so I was also feeling really good, right? I think I had always thought of myself as a very healthy person, but it wasn't until you really cut out sugar and caffeine and all of these different things, you're like, sleeping better, I feel better, I have more energy, my skin looks great.
We hear this all the time.
These kind of byproducts of just getting really healthy. So I felt really good. We're going through all of this. And so one of the other options with endometriosis is that you can take a medication that essentially puts you into temporary menopause for a few months. And so it sort of quiets the endometriosis. So we tried the surgery, that didn't work. So I opted to do the medication. So we did that. I took a couple months to get the medication in full effect. I did another embryo transfer, and that one wasn't successful. And at that point, I thought, I have literally tried everything that there is. And, I had asked my doctor, do you think surrogacy would be an option? We had 2 frozen embryos left. And she said, I don't think so. I think it's your egg quality. I think you have poor egg quality. And so that's devastating to hear. And so I went to Marc and I said, what do you think? And he said, there's absolutely no reason that like anything that I see that you should have poor egg quality. And so I think that was all I needed to hear to have the little bit of hope to keep going. So we talked a little bit about surrogacy and what that would look like.
Gotta stop here. It's clearly a difficult and emotional situation. And she had done everything up until this point that I had asked of her, everyone had asked for her, and just the time and energy and money invested was challenging, right? When you do all these things, you address all the areas, and you're still not getting pregnant, we have to start to think about other options beyond what we intended for, right? And that's where this conversation of donor, surrogacy, or both comes into play. I truly believed that her egg quality was fine, but I wanted to meet her where she was at, and that's where she's going to talk about in just a moment. I think it's really important that all of you know we get great success rates in the Hope Fertility Coaching Program, but we don't get 100% success rates. I still consider Lisa a success, even though it wasn't natural or the way she had intended. But she was determined to get the results that she wanted, which is why she was considering other options like donor and like surrogacy. So let's continue to hear what she has to say.
It's really positive about it. And I know it's hard because you're in this whole community where everybody just wants to carry their baby. And that's what I had imagined. But going through all of this, I realized at the end of the day, I want to hold a baby in my arms. It's, for me, a pregnancy, yes, that would have been amazing. But maybe that's not in the cards for me. If I can get there a different way, I can get past that. So I ended up finding an amazing woman who agreed to be our surrogate. She is now like a sister to me, and we were there together every step of the way. We went to every doctor's appointment together. I'd bring her meals. We'd go on walks. It was, you kind of only know the experience you have. And to me, pregnancy with a buddy is the best way to do it. Obviously, she, had the heavy lift there, but it was, almost fun in a way to get to do these things together. And
I get chills and I get teary-eyed when I hear her say that. I hear this all the time when someone uses a surrogate. They become super close. I hear this from surrogates. I hear this from intended parents using surrogates. So it's a super special situation. Someone's carrying a child for you, and these are the sorts of relationships that happen often in that situation.
3 kids of her own, so she'd been through it before. So I think just seeing us and how she was making our family complete was also really satisfying for her. So it just, in a weird way, it was a wonderful experience, and I don't really know that I would change it for anything. I also think when you go through such a long path to get your baby, you become a little bit of a different person and a different kind of mom. And I am I'm thankful for that too. So, we now have a 2-month-old and she's wonderful. And I think that you appreciate even the hard moments. So when it's 3 a.m. and you just were spit up on, there's a little like annoyingly positive part of me that's like, how awesome, how great. Like, I'm so lucky to be here. I think maybe you only get that if you've, been through a couple of years and false starts and, just really wanting to have that baby in your arms.
It's so special, right? I mean, to hear that is so special, so unique. And I love to hear these sorts of stories. Like Lisa's story really touches my heart. Hopefully it touches your heart as well. Lisa had some additional thoughts that she wanted to share, so I'm going to play those for you.
Taxing financially, emotionally, physically, mentally, in every single way. At some point, I think I sort of joked that fertility was like my very expensive hobby. It like takes up all your time and your mind space, your money.
Absolutely does.
And yeah. I think the HOPE program for me helped in so many of those areas, especially those that I didn't even know that I needed help with. So again, just having Marc on your team made so much of a difference. So, I would talk to my doctor and I believe she cared about me, but I'm one of so many different patients that she's seeing. And she has a job, and that job is to do retrievals and this and that, and it's not to say, maybe we should really look at your diet and talk about that. And let's spend 30 minutes and let me really help you and let me answer that question that you have. I mean, once you leave the doctor's office, you get a number and you try to call the nurse line and maybe they call you back or you email, like you're gone. And this is something where you just have constant doubts and questions. And so like, to not go crazy, you sort of need that outlet and that advocate. And that's, for me, what Marc and the HOPE program were.
I hear this all the time, and I want you all to know what she said is absolutely true. Anyone who joins my HOPE coaching program, all the members, I'm on your side. I'm your coach. I'm your advocate. I'm here to work for you. And I take that job very, very seriously. I respect what you're asking me to do. And I am here for all of you. And you can ask all the members. I give all of you the opportunity, the information, the support, the love, the care that you need. Just like she said. No different for each one of the members.
And again, just seeing other people's questions, you just learn a lot. And joining the weekly calls when people would ask questions and you'd hear how Marc would answer them. I feel like I'm a fertility expert now based on what I've learned just from listening to everybody else as well. So I'm also, I think, somebody who's pretty prideful and pretty independent, and I can do things on my own, and I'm tough. And at the end of the day, like, this was not something I could do by myself. And, I wasn't doing myself any justice trying to do it by myself or trying to, read academic papers and come up with what might be going on. It just, I think having that support system was really, really critical.
We all need coaches, mentors, guides, teachers over our life to accomplish all of our goals. At least I believe that we do. Fertility is no different. She allowed me to be her coach, her mentor, her guide. All the other members in my program have asked me to do the same, and I'm honored to do that. Honored to do it for anyone who decides to join.
I think one of the things that I would advise women who are, starting the fertility journey is just to stay open-minded about what that path might look like. Never in a million years would I have thought this is how we would get a baby, but this is how we did it and it worked and I'm really happy with it. And so just to stay open, and I think it's also really important to know what your priorities are and what's most important to you. At the end of the day, I learned being pregnant isn't necessarily the most important thing to me. I think for some women, that is really critical and they don't want to, necessarily bypass that. But just testing yourself and figuring out what, at the end of the day, is the most critical to you so that you're putting your energy in the right place.
100% accurate. She determined that for her, it's not the same for everybody, that the most important thing was her having a child in her arms to care for and have a family. And she was willing to do every option that was necessary. One of the big things I want to highlight is that her doctor told her it was egg quality. There was nothing in her history that said it was egg quality. Nothing, right? Everything was pointing to something going on with her uterus not able to carry. It's very common to hear egg quality as the problem or the issue in most fertility cases. That's what most IVF docs lean on. I'm here to tell you it's not the case all the time. And I want you to make sure that you get the support that you need for the issues that you need. And that's why for her, I thought surrogacy was going to get her the results, and it did. Each one of us have a different journey. Your path is different. I want you all to know that I'm here to support you, whatever your journey and path are. To keep learning more about fertility, keep watching these stories of hope from other members of my Hope Fertility Coaching Program. If, like her, you want my help and want me as your coach, remember to apply to qualify for the Hope Fertility Coaching Program using the link in the description below. Until the next video, stay fertile.